Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us. I want to begin with a proposed asylum rule from the administration today. What's your reaction to it?
First, Gabe, thanks for having me. Well, we haven't seen the details. We know it's a proposed rule, and I'd like to have time to actually look at it and study it and see if the Congressional Hispanic Caucus will have a comment on it. But at first blush, just hearing about the reports of what is in it is it changes the timing of when an officer can apply mandatory bars for migrants. And so we don't know what the impact or effect will be yet, or how large of a group this will be. But you know, if it's an issue where you have a national security or a public threat, I could see the reasoning behind it. But we also want to make sure anything that's put forward doesn't turn away innocent people, and that's our great concern and our great fear. So we'll have to take a look at the details, which I haven't seen yet.
And Congresswoman, I was at an event at the White House earlier this week where the president promised you and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus a meeting. What do you plan to say to the president in this meeting, and is there any frustration it's taken him this long?
Well, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus sent over a list of proposed executive actions we believe the president should take. This is a time and a moment that I think he should do it, and he can do it. And so the meeting would be to go over those proposals and those recommendations. Just for example, one of them is to make sure that the spouses of citizens have the ability to have parole in place and to have protections for them. People have been here for a long time, and so we want to make sure that he exercises this opportunity. And as you mentioned, you know, the president, when I brought up the meeting, was very generous in saying, yes, of course, let's set up a meeting. So we're looking forward to having that opportunity to talk to him about these proposals.
But hadn't the Congressional Hispanic Caucus asked for that meeting now for several months, where there's some frustration during negotiations for the bipartisan border bill that you didn't get that meeting back then?
Yeah, well, that was a different meeting request. We had requested to meet with the White House about and to be part of the discussions when the Senate deal was occurring, and that was very frustrating that you didn't have a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus at the table. This was a different request for a different topic, and that is to talk about executive actions that the president can and should take. We know Republicans do not want to do anything on the southern border. They don't want to help, and Democrats are willing and able and ready to work, and that's what we're trying to do.
And Congresswoman, you and your colleagues signed a letter calling in the administration to streamline pathways to lawful status for undocumented immigrants. Do your Senate colleagues share your concern about pathways? And because our reporting indicates Senator Schumer may bring up parts of the bipartisan border deal, which you've been critical of, as you just said. And do you feel that they're serious about getting immigration reform done?
Well, I know Republicans are not serious about getting any immigration reform done, and that's, I think, the big challenge here. But we do know that the letter that I sent to the president was signed on by senators. It was signed on by House members. We actually just did a press with our senators just yesterday. So there is a shared concern on asking the president to take action, and that might be the best course right now, given that Congress is inefficient and not functional, especially on the House side with Republicans in control and the chaos there. But we want to make sure that anything that's put forward, any proposals, anything on the Senate, includes and makes sure that we're not leaving behind people who've been in this country that need those protections. And so any kind of enforcement needs to be paired with positives.
Congresswoman, last time you were on this program, you said you were willing to make, quote, tough compromises if there's a pathway to citizenship in any reform bill. What specifically are you willing to compromise on to get that into legislation?
Well, I think that's a question for Republicans on what is it that they are seeking in exchange to do something they've already said they're for, which is providing protections for dreamers. What is it that they want for that? And I think those are conversations we can have, whether it's talking about the credible fear standard, whether it's talking about more regional processing overseas. It's hard to tell exactly what Republicans want, because when you have these conversations behind closed doors, the sentiment is, yes, we're for this. We want to work on something, but the appetite isn't there right now. And with Trump running, he doesn't want us to do anything either. And I think that just goes to show you why there is nothing being done by Republicans to actually address the situation.
And Congresswoman, I want to turn now to President Biden's engagement with Latino voters. Last time we spoke with you, you said that he needed to get out and really talk about what the administration is doing for your communities. Have you been satisfied with what you've heard in the last 3 months?
Well, he's been going out to Arizona, Nevada, the vice president. We've definitely seen the engagement. We got to just make sure we're keeping that up to make sure that Latinos everywhere are hearing about not only what has been done and things that haven't even taken effect yet, whether it's the lowering of prescription drug prices, to go out and tout what he's doing on student loans, which is huge for our Latino community and students and those who have debt. So we need to continue to do that, but we also need to talk about what we also are going to do. How to finish the job, something that he started, but he needs another 4 years to finish that job. And so we got to continue to do that engagement. Of course, we know his campaign manager, Latina, Julie Chavez, is also at the table. And that's what we need. Somebody who understands the community, who understands the messaging, and is doing so not just in English, but in Spanish, and is deploying people across this country.
Congresswoman Nanette Barragán, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.